Welcome to the 2020 IEBA Virtual Conference, Fairs and Expos breakout session. I'm Mallory Hines with the San Antonio Stock Show and Rodeo, and we are here today to discuss lessons learned. What have fairs experienced this year, and what are fairs taking with them into the future? We want to look at this from the entertainment perspective primarily because that's of course why we're here, but want to acknowledge that many of us in the fair industry wear a lot of different hats. So some of the twists and turns of this conversation may take us into the broader event perspective. I'm honored to be with this group of people today who are showing us a path forward from the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo in Houston, Texas, which is a 20-day event in March. We have Dr. Chris Boleman, President and CEO. Hello there. And Jason Kane, Director, Entertainment and Concert Production. Hey, Jason. From the Delaware State Fair in Harrington, Delaware, which is a 10-day event in late July, we have Danny Aguilar, Assistant GM and Director of Marketing. Hey, Danny. And for the Minnesota State Fair in Minneapolis, Minnesota, which is 12 days of fun ending Labor Day, we have Renee Alexander, Deputy General Manager. Hello, Renee.
Hi, everyone. Hello.
So to kick us off, it's been a wild year, to say the least, but a lot has happened in the fair industry. And so I want to address the past. What did your events look like this year? So I want to give each fair kind of 5 minutes to tell your event story. And let's take this in chronological order, starting in March with our friends from Houston here. I will never forget watching what unfolded in Houston unfold, and I think your story is quite famous, but we look forward to hearing it from your perspective.
Cool, I'll kick us off, Jason, then I'll punt to you to talk specifically about entertainment. So yeah. It's good to see everybody, even though it's at a distance, but yeah, I think we were kind of the first one that we were asked to close down, which was March the 11th and 12th, if you remember those dates. I know we do fondly here. And I think for us, the biggest, as we were in the moment, what we were doing and we will continue to do moving ahead is we were following the local guidelines that were in place at the time. And that was our messaging. There's been lots of things written and said since that shutdown, but we were, since January, in conversation with all of our local elected officials' offices, as well as the medical field here in Houston. And so we were getting almost daily check-ins, and then we were certainly getting check-ins at the beginning of the show. And so like anything else, I mean, you do what you do. And so it was a very tough time. As we started, we knew from day one that one of the things that they had told us is if there was a local spread, not connected to an international travel, that would be problematic. And so we continue to watch that and get updates from them, from our elected officials and the health and medical arena day to day. In saying that, so what happened is when the city shut us down, which is what happened due to health permits and the pandemic being here, is we went immediately into reaction mode. And for us, that meant we didn't get too concerned and didn't really feel sorry for ourselves. We did what was best for the community, which was to clear the facility out, and that took us throughout the day. Lessons learned from that, I'll just tell you, is we will now have emergency management plans. We actually had emergency management plans, but it was, and we actually knew the actions. It was more of what do we communicate to whom and when, because when you're across the grounds at the carnival versus being in the center or you're in the stadium like Jason, it was a consistency of messaging that started happening. And frankly, our biggest trouble was the word got out through different local medias and so forth, really before we were told that we were shut. People knew before us. We knew what was coming, but we didn't have anything officially in hand. And so that took a lot for us to clean up because of the mixed messages. But what we ended up doing is we just did what any organization would do. We did what we were told, and we got with our people, and we closed out as quick and as fast as we could. We wrote down lessons learned and moved on to the next play. And I think for us, even looking forward, and we'll talk more about the future here in a few minutes, that's kind of the continued game plan, with knowing, trying to find as much information as we can ahead of time to be prepared. But Jason, I'll punt to you to talk about your world that day and how we responded.
Well, that day was difficult for everyone. It was really heartbreaking from the entertainment standpoint because we had Kane Brown and his team in the building. They were ready to go. happy, ready to put on a great show that night, and we were, of course, never able to execute it. They were absolutely professional in the process of being able to button everything up for the day, and then really start the task of doing an early move out, which is very, very difficult when you're trying to take sound, lights, and everything else, video out of a stadium, and get it done in a relatively short period of time. Leading up to it, obviously we didn't know as much as we know now about COVID-19, how it was transferred, how, what the whole process of protecting yourself from it is. But we did secure everything that we could put our hands on in terms of PPE to be prepared to go forward and have a safe environment in our backstage area and keep everything as clean as possible in terms of overnight. We had already done the overnight hydrostatic cleaning of all of our facilities in the entertainment area, that is the backstage, green rooms, cafeteria, all of that had already started back in February. So, we were already on the right track. And again, as Chris points out, we took a lot of notes and are, doing the best we can to be prepared for the future.
Yeah,
excellent.
I'll add one more thing to Jason's point about cleaning and so forth. We did make the decision and really changed our communication strategy as we started seeing COVID-19 become a part of our everyday life in America. It just wasn't in Houston yet. And so we did a significant amount of adapting on the fly when we first started our show to ensure with our clientele or the public that we put in more hand sanitizers. We're following the protocol that was in place at the time. So just wanted to expand on that.
Excellent. And that's a killer segue to one quick question I had, Jason, before we move along.
Right.
You guys talk about communication, and obviously working with Kane's team on the ground that day, you guys were working together, but what was communication like with the artists that were yet to arrive there in Houston?
Well, it was, our partners on the entertainment side were really excellent in the face of a real tough day and a real tough set of days to follow. People, were unhappy. They wanted to play the show. They looked forward to coming and visiting with all of our fans here in Houston. And for the most part, everybody was, really disappointed. We were, as I spoke to a number of people in the industry, we were kind of the canary in the coal mine, so to speak, because it was right after the plug was pulled, so to speak. All of the other major cancellations started to roll in. So in a way, our cancellation at the time became one of many.
Absolutely. So on that note, want to move on throughout the calendar to Delaware. And before I do that, I want to note for our guests here that you can submit questions via the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen, and we'll try to get to those later. I know as these folks talk, many questions may come up. I will try to do my best to ask those for you and include some of your questions here at the end. So Danny, take us into what happened in Delaware this summer with your event.
Yeah, it's you indicated earlier, Mallory. First off, happy birthday to IEBA. It's quite an accomplishment. We just finished our centennial celebration back in 2019, and thank goodness we were not celebrating our 100th, during this very challenging time. And around the March time, as Jason said, or as Chris had said, the kind of the shutdown for Delaware had taken place early March, and it's hard because you really can't see COVID-19. You really can't necessarily, the information that was out there and available early on was hard to make decisions. So we as a staff, the office, shut down, and we did the virtual, go to meetings and our working from home situation. And we stayed the course. We had always messaged very, very similar to what Jason was saying from the communication standpoint. We'd always messaged that we were planning to have a fair. First step we did, though, in fact, was we canceled all of our grandstand shows. We have about 50 to 60,000 as far as capacity for our 10-day run. The Delaware State Fair has about 300,000 people roughly in attendance during the 10 days. But we immediately needed to get that bouncing ball off the table and make an early determination, because at that point, social distancing really seemed to be a marker of something that you just did not want to engage with. And that seemed to be kind of a hot button. So upon cancellation, we immediately moved into a full refund of all tickets to kind of clear the slate and to help us focus on just planning a fair. So we were very much in that mode. We immediately reached out to our public health officials to establish an early relationship to get an understanding of their rules of engagement and what their expectations would be of us if we were to have a fair. We immediately moved out to and messaged with the IAFE, the International Association of Fairs and Expos, and they had a neat little survey about kind of a checklist, if you will, of things to consider and things to go through. And we were asking ourselves as a planning team, are these items that we feel that we can execute to administer a safe venue. We really wanted to stay true to our mission statement and to put on a fair, but make sure that we're doing it in a safe way. We were the first, I believe, one of the first or the earlier fairs in July to actually occur and to take place. And there was a lot of communications. Social media was definitely a hotbed. Some folks were just questioning the decisions itself. Others were, thank you for giving us some form of normalcy. We did, in fact, execute what we'd like to feel a very safe fair. There were no direct cases related afterwards to the Delaware State Fair. There was one kind of in question, but for us to bring in, a fair that looked a little bit different than we've presented in the other 100 years. Safety, communication, marketing and messaging of what the expectations, what the customer expectations would be, what our expectations would be, what the state's expectation, the public health, CDC. So a lot of that, because we were so early in the calendar, there are still a lot of questions about what is this COVID-19 and what's this coronavirus and how often our rides are going to be cleaned, how often our for us, when we started to have the event, the fair started, we immediately want to message the cleaning protocols and the safety protocols that we were administering to make sure folks felt safe. And our attendance, of course, was down, but we were successful in putting on a virtual livestock show. We had animals here, but we did some virtual because the capacity of our grounds and free entertainment were limited. So really, it got into a very, aggressive communication and marketing. So folks understood, how if you're coming to the Delaware State Fair, what the rules of engagement would be and what the expectations with facial coverings, hand sanitizing, hand washing, social distancing, requirements of face masks, the carnival expectations. So we were excited to actually put the fair on. We got some wonderful partners. We established some new relationships. We made promises to our food vendors that were not able to join us that we would, of course, in 2021, welcome them back with arms. With open arms. We knew that folks may just feel uncomfortable, and we understood that. And we had about a third of our typical attendance arrive and come out to the Delaware State Fair. But overall, we definitely marked this as a success. As Chris had said earlier, it definitely gives us new chapters to write in our emergency planning and just kind of developing some new protocols, moving forward as we start to plan for 2021.
Excellent. And obviously a success by many accounts, including attendance and safety. To achieve that, aside from the CDC guidelines, what other changes did you make kind of to the face of your event that you think contributed to the safety and success?
For us, because social media played such a dominant and important role for us messaging, is we immediately went into the video presentations of what the fair looked like. So we walked folks through a typical cleaning protocol of all of our carnival rides. We made sure that all the cleaning protocol and the PPEs were up front and present, so folks saw it right at the main gates. and we had that constant cleaning and sanitation presence there on the grounds. So not that it wasn't there before, but we doubled and tripled many of our hand sanitizing stations, hand washing stations. Fairs are very, very in good situation with E. coli and other issues that we've had, other viruses. And so we've been very fortunate as an industry to be very prepared. And we just kind of stepped up those efforts, and we already had those protocols in place. Really, communication, I can't stress enough for us, just getting the word out of what the Delaware State Fair looked like in this pandemic, and the safety aspects of feeling safe when you came to the fair.
Excellent. Thank you. It was really exciting to see you guys pull off an event this year. Really inspiring.
Appreciate it.
So moving on toward the end of the summer, Renee, tell us about the decisions that were made in Minnesota this year and what you guys produce.
Sure. So as you mentioned, Mallory, our fair is always 12 days ending Labor Day. So August 27th would have been our start day this year. As I think Chris mentioned when we were preparing for this call, the Rona roller coaster that we all lived prior to making that decision, we announced our cancellation on May 22nd. What had happened kind of transpired up to that point. Other kind of benchmark events that happened throughout the summer in this market had already canceled. So there was already a lot of speculation that the fair was not going to be happening. But when we made that final announcement, it was still a tough one. We're a little different than the others in that we are a quasi-state agency. So we made the decision ourselves. It was a decision that was made on our own, however, with guidance from other entities. So we had a conversation with the Commissioner of Health from the state of Minnesota, and one phrase that she said that has stuck with me was, "I can't imagine another event that could have a negative trajectory on this virus than having the fair." So that was, pretty much solidified it, I think, for all of us that we were making the right decision to not move forward with the fair. So May 22nd, we canceled. I would say it took us a couple weeks to, I refuse to use the word pivot. We recalibrated and started working on our kind of wish list of items we wanted to do kind of throughout the summer, really kind of focusing on those 12 days of the fair at the end of August. And I think the key pieces were revenue generation, what can we do to survive, basically, and also engagement, just fan engagement. And this event is such a tradition in this area. How could we, kind of help people carry on that tradition without a fair? So we kind of came up with some different items that we kind of created throughout the summer from scratch. And I think it took us a little bit of time to kind of move into kind of that creative mode and what we all know what we do so well. So really kind of changing and looking at things in a different way and doing it with, not a lot of budget, not much finances to work with, and limited staff. I mean, we were limited to just our full-time staff. So really knowing that we had limited capacity there to actually produce some things. So what we came up with were, we created some merchandise items. We sold our clear beer cups. We sold those throughout the summer, and those were a huge hit with people. We set up we have a merchandising partner through our foundation, our nonprofit arm. They created some items that we sold throughout the summer as well. An online marketplace. All of our non-food vendors, we created an online marketplace for them in order to sell their items. Several of them had already purchased inventory for the summer, so that it gave them an opportunity to be able to sell their goods through our through our portal, and we were able to kind of boost their sales and help promote them throughout the summer. We created an at-home edition of the fair, and that was during the 12 days of the fair. So that was really about creating content, online content, and some of it was contesting it, some of it was just introducing people to different areas of the fair that maybe they don't see. And that's part of our hope, is that people, could see some of that content and look at things for future items that they would want to come back and enjoy the fair. We did our fine arts show in person. So that was on a limited capacity, and that was a ticketed event. And then finally, kind of the big piece that we did was a food parade. So we did 3 weekends, Thursday through Sunday. for 3 weeks, and we did 19,000 vehicles. We took kind of the model that a lot of other fairs had done with doing, food trailers in parking lots, and we turned it into more of an experiential thing. So we charged an admission, we monetized it. It was $25 a car, including fees. We had 16 food vendors. We organized some local talent, local entertainment that performed at various locations, created a goodie bag, got some sponsors around it, and just created a whole event that was really kind of celebrating the food and, kind of those little pieces of the fair that we could bring forward for folks.
Incredible. And you touched on kind of performances. What role did entertainment really play, and what made you guys decide that it was worth taking on a small expense to add entertainment to this alternative event?
I think the fact that we were charging for the event, we felt like we needed to add more than just drive around and get fair food. So we felt it was important to do that. And the other thing was the artists that we brought forward are primarily local nonprofits, just small arts organizations. And we looked at the type of entertainment that they could provide, and that they could do it in a safe way, and in an area that was kind of away from, wasn't in direct proximity to the actual event itself, so people could drive by and experience it without having to totally engage. So it was a way to kind of bridge the gap with those local artists and give them, a little bit of a small paycheck too. So that was, I think, the important piece for us.
Excellent. It's fun to see entertainment being used, and we've got the drive-in concept we're all familiar with now, but now we've got the drive-by concept. So very creative. I love that. Awesome. So thank you all for catching us up to speed on what a year this has been. It's really amazing to see what all you've done to recalibrate. Thank you, Renee. I'm going to keep that one in this fluid situation. If you could come up with an alternative word for that, I would be greatly appreciated.
I'll work on that.
Thank you. So I want to look at where we're going and how we're going to get there. And I think Chris kind of touched on this. My big question to all of you is, what do you know now that you wish you had known going into your 2020 event? And I'd love to just start with you, Chris, and let you talk a little bit more about this emergency management plan you mentioned, and kind of your advice to all of us as we think about creating those for ourselves.
Well, yeah, I would say by far the thing that where we spend most of our time since shutdown, frankly, is coming up with options. We call them scenarios here. I know the team is probably tired of me saying that. And I would also say that's the most difficult part. Here's what we know. We know that every year we wrap up a show and we start planning for the next one. And we go off of that game plan, we go off of that script, that timeline, whatever term you want to use. And so by far the most difficult thing for us as we start looking, as we already very much in-depth planning for March 2021, is that we're ready to go with scenarios. And so, just last week, I noticed 3 shows announced 3 completely different plans for 2021. And all of us are in that boat of uncertainty. And so, and matter of fact, we've had to get very comfortable with uncertainty around here. Keep in mind here at HLSR, we still only have 50% of our staff back in the offices. We started committee meetings, our volunteer meetings started just a couple of weeks ago with no more than 10 people. So we are definitely in a frame of uncertainty. And we have to be comfortable with that. So in saying that, what we're doing is we're just playing out we have it narrowed down. We've started with probably 20, 25 different scenarios. We're down to about 5 or 6. As you might expect, all of us are looking at the financial implications of those scenarios. But the other piece to this is, I think it's critically important for everybody to keep in mind, and certainly is the top of our list here, is look back on why you're a nonprofit or what your organizational mission is, because you have to stay on point there. Because that's why you're supposed to do what you do. And so that's what we're doing. We're working through the process. It's not easy. It's not fun. Matter of fact, one of my colleagues said, "This isn't any fun." I said, "Yeah, no, I know. It's not going to be fun." And March 21st is when it'll be fun, because as I've told Jason, no matter what, it will at least will be done. But I think the main point is, don't give up in looking at options. Frankly, when we were shut down on March the 12th, we had no other options. Now, part of that is it never happened before, who knew? But this year, if that were to happen, or we're able to move forward with some shorter version, or it doesn't make any difference what the scenario is or what the local authorities will allow us to do. we will have a plan, which leads me to my second point, and then I'll be quiet, is you have to be in line, lock and step with your local officials. We are meeting, we have been meeting all summer with the county office, the city office, the commissioner's office, all of our elected officials. Everybody wants us to have a show, much like I'm sure everybody on here, because it means so much to communities. And so having them in the decision-making, or even just the communication and information loop, not so much the decision-making, allows for them to understand the uniqueness of our scenario compared to the Texans, playing every other Sunday. And so we are unique. We're 20 days in a row. We don't have a week to go fix something. And so having them a part of that mess, I think is a part of it, and a big part of it as we look ahead.
Awesome. Thank you for that great information. And you don't have to be quiet. We did not invite you here today to be quiet. So thanks for sharing.
Well, I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to speak. So.
Absolutely. Does anyone else have anything that they learned going through this year's event that they wish they'd known? Okay, well then let me put it this way, and you kind of touched on this as well. How are you changing your operation for the future based on what you went through this year? What is there good that's coming from it? Is there something you're cutting that you'll never bring back? Kind of what are you taking from this?
Are you asking me, Mallory, or anybody?
Anybody.
I mean, from a Delaware perspective, and I understand Delaware will be very different than Texas and then Minnesota and Florida and California. As I said earlier, it's very important for us to work closely with the division and Department of Public Health for us here. We've already had an amazing relationship with them just from the food, just checking our food vendors. But we moving forward, in order to have a presence or to come up with new ideas and to kind of recreate possibly some of your business models, or moving forward for planning for 2021, is to have that continued conversation with them. We're actually planning for a craft fair this coming Saturday. So we've been able to social distance. We understand the rules of engagement. We've spaced things out. So we've kind of developed, based on having a fair, based on our 68-page plan, and the success model that we've been able to work from. It's given us a great footprint to move forward, and now we have other renters that are interested in looking at the Delaware State Fair, because we have the ability to plan, to have the space to look at social distancing, to look at face coverings, and so much information is changing. Those pull-up gaiters were acceptable face coverings. Now they're not. So, we're constantly having to tweak and to adjust in order to, keep things moving forward in a positive direction. Our staff is fully, we've returned back. We were back early May. So we've been kind of in a full mode, but with the understanding that, we've got to take care of each other, and we do several virtual meetings with all of our interest and our partners. As far as our first responders, working close with DPH, with EMT and rescues and such. So for us, from a planning perspective, it's really given us a good footprint moving forward, and that's where we talked about what Chris was saying is taking our planning documents and kind of rewriting them based on the current COVID, and something else I'm sure will come up and will challenge all industries. But we've been trying to be very positive, moving forward in a positive direction. We're getting ready to make a concert announcement early November, and trying to redevelop how we're going to sell tickets and how we're going to assign tickets and seating. So we're having to recreate. We're having to kind of check on technology, try to make technology work for us. And it really comes down to just looking at those options or those contingency plans, and just laying out a plan A, plan B, plan C, and so on.
And I would speak on a couple different options, I think, or things that we're kind of looking moving forward. Is one, from a staffing perspective, making sure that you've got some overlap with folks that can do this. You mentioned earlier, Mallory, we all wear a lot of different hats. And if you get in a situation where you may be losing key staff members due to an outbreak or a possible illness where you may have to quarantine staff, making sure that staff have documented what they're doing, and just making sure you've got that overlap so someone can fill in, because the event's not going to stop, hopefully, so that you can continue moving forward. The other thing I think was interesting for us with our food parade was, from a marketing perspective, we didn't spend $1 on marketing. yet we sold 19,000 tickets for our first food parade. We just finished. We did 2 more weekends of a fall food parade. This second time around, we sold tickets via lottery. We had 65,000 people, unique email addresses, register for that lottery, which is that's a plus side that we were adding to our database. But 65,000 people that were interested in this event that we did not do any kind of marketing. I mean, I don't see marketing going completely, true spends or ad buys going away completely, but I think we'll look at it a lot differently than we have in the past.
Fascinating. That's incredible, and I think shows the appetite in your market, literally the appetite to come out and enjoy a food event. That's great. And what about on the entertainment side? How are you buying differently for the future? I know we've touched a little bit on ticket selling. How are you guys going to promote differently? What's changing about the way you approach the offer process? Kind of where are you headed after what you've been through? And this is to anyone.
Well, on the buying side, I mean, we've kind of made the decision going in that it's easier to gear up and than it is or gear down, if you will, if we have to at the last moment. So we've been moving towards putting together a full lineup as we normally would in a given year, because I think, as Chris outlined, there may be 5 or 6 scenarios out there, but one of our key scenarios is that we have got to be prepared to put on a full show if we can get there at the beginning of March. So we've got to have that in place. I think, there's, I'm not saying it's a bargain hunter's paradise, but I'm just, I would say that our partners in the entertainment industry are much more understanding of what the situation is. They need to be flexible. As I've said in the past, we've told everybody like the worst possible news on March 12th. So there's not much more we can tell them that would be worse than that we're pulling the plug. So,
it's a beautiful perspective. It's all relative.
Exactly.
What about for the rest of you events? How are you kind of changing the way you approach entertainment going forward?
Yeah, for the Delaware State Fair, and Jason touched on this, I mean, we're really looking at working with the artists and their management team in a partnership. We're trying to get marketing plans approved, and it's hard when most of their staff is furloughed. So the rules of engagement, or just engaging with the normal lines of communication has changed. And I think everyone just needs to be patient and understand that these are difficult times for several individuals. And for us, we need to make sure that the fair is protected. No one's crystal ball. I mean, what July 2021, I have my hopes of what it will look like. We all, cross our fingers and light our candles whenever necessary to hope that we're, say full capacity, or we can maybe wear facial coverings and have, more than a 50% capacity. But we're definitely going to need the management teams to work with us if we are forced to certain capacity levels. And we're seeing the willingness, like Jason said, we're seeing the willingness to say, yes, we're in this together. It's both sides looking at each other and saying, what's in the best interest, the safety of the artists, the safety of the venues, building consumer confidence and working together and collaboratively in all issues.
Great. And I want to interject with a quick question from the crowd about this concept that's kind of become the new hot word, which is rolling entertainment. Are you finding opportunity in transferring things you had into the future, or are you looking at it as a clean slate? Kind of what's your approach there? I
wanted to bring back almost everybody, and I think we have everybody except one back that did not get to perform in this year.
Incredible.
Into 21. So yeah, the management agencies, artists have been absolutely phenomenal in terms of working toward that goal. And it's been, really, really gratifying.
And I would agree with that. We rolled all of our 2020 into 2021. So wow. We have 11 nights of grandstand entertainment. I have all but 2 that were already booked for 2020 that everything rolled over. We've announced about half of the lineup. I'm just sitting on the other half right now. I didn't want to put anything up for sale until we started to see things kind of open up in the market. So we're just kind of just playing it close right now. But the tickets for the shows that are already on sale are still on sale, and we just rolled everything over. We also have 5 free stages throughout our grounds, and that entertainment was already also rolled over. We have not, and had not announced that yet for 2020. So that will still be, that'll be the big announcement surprise for 21. But everything rolled over, I think. And what I agree with Jason that everyone was great to work with us on that. But I think what we also had by the time we announced, it was no surprise to any of the agents. We'd had plenty of conversations that this is the scenario that if it goes this way, this is what we would like to do. And everyone was completely understanding. And by the time the announcement was made, it was no surprise to anybody. They all knew that it was coming.
Yeah, and we clean slated everything. So we basically issued full refunds to everyone, knowing that we would more or less need to look at the approach for 21. We're looking at a deferred or delayed fulfillment on sale. So we're looking into those technologies with eTix, with our partner on our ticketing side. So we're just going to try to maybe drum up some new ways of engaging with our customers, but just trying to keep a positive moving forward approach to 2021 and the Delaware State Fair.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit, Danny, and tell us more kind of about that delivery system you're doing with eTix? I know we have some questions from the audience here to that effect.
Yeah, we're basically saying get your line, get your ticket for the deli line, and we're not necessarily saying, okay, Mallory is going to be in section A, seat row 2, seat 2. We're basically saying you're going to be in section A. We're going to fulfill X amount of seats in this section. We need to wait until we get closer to July or more the June timeframe to see where we are with public health, to see where we are with seating capacities, and if we need to make any adjustments there at this point. We had operated, and we're currently operating at a 60% capacity based off of fire marshal regulations. So that's where we are right now. If we were to put on any type of event like we are with this craft show coming Saturday. So the deferred or delayed fulfillment more or less is saying you are, Mallory, you have 2 tickets for X artist. We're going to let you know a little bit closer to know your exact seats, but you are in X section. So it gives us an opportunity to wait to see what the regulators are going to restrict us to or not restrict us to, and then on the fulfillment side. But it still affords people an opportunity. It's not a GA approach. It gives them an opportunity to choose certain sections. So we feel that this is an approach that would be viable and a good business model moving forward to just keep with the messaging that we're planning for concerts, planning for entertainment, on grounds entertainment as well.
Incredible. I think that's a very realistic approach to the capacity monster we're all dealing with. That's really exciting. Yes, Chris.
Yeah, I just want to ask one question. I'm going to ask a question. Sorry, moderator Mallory.
No, please.
But Danny, one of the things that we're struggling with, and I'd be interested to know in the text chat if other people are too, is we have two things happening at the same time that yield different results, and which is opening at 50% capacity and 6-foot distancing. And so at 6 feet distancing, the reality for us is we can't 50%. It's going to be more like 30%. And so in your state, are you seeing, and so we're trying to get clarification, is it and or when you put a mask on, what does that all mean? Because you guys on the East Coast have been a little before us on COVID-19 as it spread, where are y'all at on that philosophy or thought?
Yeah, no, a great question, Chris. And you kind of touched on it. Working with our regulators, the current configuration, because we have an ice arena on the grounds, is if you're wearing a face covering, then you more or less can, not that you're avoiding or ignoring the social distancing. Ultimately, they want everyone to social distance, but a face covering kind of helps modify the rules of engagement. So it really depends on the entry points, the exit points, the seating capacity. And it's something that, we hope, once again, fingers crossed, candles are lit, that come July, that will somewhat loosen and we'll be in a better frame, or at least from an educational standpoint, we'll have a better understanding. Touch points was a big issue for everyone during fair time. When now looking at the technology, it's not as much. So for us, the deferred fulfillment or delayed fulfillment gives us the capability of saying, okay, we're going to address the capacity issues closer. I know it doesn't help you with the March event, but when you have a July or September, I'm trying to remember Renee's dates, or August, it gives you maybe some rules to kind of get the business as far as the entertainment ball rolling.
And it's fine to light those candles in March, Dana. You don't have
to... All the time.
I'll light a few candles for you, Chris, for you and Jason.
Good.
Excellent. So my final question to you guys, as we light candles and we need those around us to light those would be our staffs. What is it like leading a team in this time? How are you keeping a staff motivated in this uncertainty of scenario after scenario? Maybe they're going to promote this show. Maybe they're going to do ticketing. Maybe they're not. How on earth are you keeping your people cohesive?
I may have to let Jason answer how I'm doing there, to be honest with you. But,
well,
but
I wanted to say, it really is about leadership, and Dr. Boleman is doing a fantastic job, at least on our side, trying to keep everybody corralled and in the, so to speak, and in a positive frame of mind while being realistic. I don't think we can pull punches with people. I think we got to tell them the bold truth, no matter what it is, at the time that we know it, and communicate clearly with people so they understand what their options are.
Yeah, I was just going to add, it's exhausting. But no,
thanks for your honesty.
I do think there's no such thing as over communicating. That, to me, that's point one. And if you're like the rest of us, you have staff, you have volunteers, you have an executive committee. It's also what we've learned is the cadence of communicating with whom, when, because there's been a couple of times where we've been out front with one group and then another group here. So that's been really important for us to do. And then, as Jason said, we're just trying to be as transparent as we can. And then the third piece, I can't say this strong enough, that it is perfectly okay that you're frustrated and you're uneasy, because that is a piece of this. That every decision we're making is made with good intentions. Some of them aren't popular, but it's okay to be uncomfortable. And for me, at least, that's been the hardest part to get our arms around. People want answers, they want them now, and they're just not there. Matter of fact, I told a group the other day is that the questions you're asking me, you're still viewing the world in 2019. You cannot do that anymore. You have to understand that the world is changing, and we don't know what that looks like yet. But the one thing I know for sure is that no matter what, it's not going to look like 2019. And that may be forever, that may be for some time frame, but you have to get in this new norm mentality, because and you have to be comfortable with it. Again, being uncomfortable is okay. So
that's great. And you mentioned that there's no such thing as over communicating. Do you guys think there's such thing as oversharing? How much are you letting your teams in? I know for me, we're kind of cracking open the numbers and going, everyone, take a look at this. Look at this show from a unique perspective. What are we missing? What's you guys' approach on that side of things?
Yeah, we've built some task forces and some teams to get input so people are a part of the process. At the end of the day, I think all of us have an executive committee that we have to work with. And so it's a fine line. There's always a balance of things that everybody needs to know and things you're working on behind the scenes, and when it's ripe, RIPE, when is it ripe to share? And so there's no magic answer to that. It's just, you definitely want people involved. You want people included, particularly as it impacts their area. And so, but just the full divulging of everything, it's impossible, because the minute you do it, things change. That's the other piece to this, is it's just very hard to come out and say, this is what's going on. And then the next day something changes from 6 foot distancing, 50%, wear a mask, whatever it is. It's very hard to predict.
Yeah, I do think though that transparency is key in the fact of not sugarcoating where you're at as an organization. That, we've been clear. It's like, we're out of business. What we do does not exist right now. So what are we going to do to all jump in and make this work? And I think then there's a better understanding when that this financially, we need everybody to just kind of help out however they can, either from cutting expenses or ideas for new revenue. And I think that's super important. And I think from our perspective too, with staff, what really helped was having an event to work towards. We all had a common goal, and that was super helpful, I think, to be able to, we're all event people. That's what we do. So for us all to kind of jump in and get our hands dirty and actually create something was, I think, very, just felt good for all of us to work together on that.
Yeah, and Renee brings up a great point on the transparency side, because you really need to buy in, and the staff is amazing. They can come up with some great creative ideas, and this craft fair kind of yields from those type of ideas of, hey, we can't do this event, but what if we did this? We had it in an outdoor covered building, and we did social distancing and had this. Go ahead and crunch the numbers, and an idea came out from our facilities manager and our rentals manager, and it was a great concept. It worked. Department of Public Health said, yeah, we can do it. We're very fortunate from the Delaware perspective that we've not needed to lay off people or furlough anyone, because that's a big human element. And we've been very open to say, guys, this is the reality of where we are. And you're seeing, Disney and the airline industry and several industries just being impacted on massive levels. So we've been, as a team approach early on with planning a fair, like Renee said, when you have something to plan, it kind of gives you that extra spunk. It gets you excited, gets the juices flowing, versus just kind of sitting and, okay, I'm just going to file some more things. Then it really, fills those hours in the day. And like you said, Mallory, we all wear many hats, whether we're security one day, taking pictures another day, or taking tickets or scanning. We do what we do, and that's the beauty of our industry, and why it's live entertainment is so critical to just the human survival of the soul and just feeling something. And it's a shame, and we're strong-willed, and we're all going to get through this and be better in many other areas.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. We've got time for just one more question from the audience. Now that we've kind of brought ourselves to this point where we're all having events and we're talking about events, which is very exciting, what challenges have you overcome, or do you think are still ahead of you with getting the public to come back? I know, Danny, you touched on video a little bit. Renee, you've got this demand. In Houston, you're facing a very large capacity of tickets coming here. What challenges are in our way, and how are we getting through that and getting people to trust us and come to these great events we've made?
I think that's a key point. And I think our marketing strategy will be very different in 2021 than what it's been in the past, because I do think we will definitely double down on and make that our number one priority. And to be honest, as I was telling some folks earlier today, we have to mean it. It's not just a messaging. We have to be committed to it, because there's so much at risk if we're not. So I definitely think that is the most critical piece, is letting people know that we're good with you coming in. Here's what we've done, and we're going to be here for you. At the same time, I think it's very important to point out that there's going to be a percentage of the population that's not going to be comfortable. And we have to be okay with that. I've tried to reset some benchmarks the other day with some of our folks, because we're not expecting what we normally do. This is the new norm. And you cannot depend on what's happened in the past. We just completed a survey here with NRG Park. 19% of the people say, even if there's a vaccine, we're not comfortable. And so we're going to go and do another one before show, because that's going to help us plan. We need to know, and we need to be okay with that. That it is definitely a different time. As I've said on many conversations, my parents are in their mid-70s. Right now, if we had a show tomorrow, I would tell them this is probably not the place for them. I mean, that's just, and they've had health problems. And so all of that is something we have to accept. But there's no doubt in my mind that the marketing and the communications and our planning from a safety protocol is the highest priority.
Excellent. Renee, Danny, what about you? What about with what you just completed? What were your challenges there, and how did you overcome them?
Good, Renee.
Well, I was kind of piggybacking on what Chris said as far as communication. One of the interesting things that came out of this food parade event was I think the public is getting used to looking at events in a different way, and knowing that they need to plan ahead and actually reading what you send them, or and so we did a know before you go before each weekend, and put together a very comprehensive email, and made changes from what we'd originally told them based on arrival time and those kind of things. And people actually followed it and made the changes based on the direction we had given. So I think, and the other thing that was really a surprise for us was how appreciative the audience was, and that we were trying to do something. And the first time where we've seen people really like comment on that the logistics were good, that this was a well-run event. So I think there's the communication piece and knowing that the public can handle it. Like you don't, you know, tell them what you're doing and that you're doing it to keep them safe and create an event that works for everyone. So I think, but you know, our part of our mission, you talk about mission, Mallory, is being accessible for all. And at least, you know, for the time being, you know, and to Chris's point, we are not going to be accessible for all, you know, and until we get to a point where people feel comfortable and we feel comfortable having them here, that's going to be a big challenge.
I love that you touched on one of the positives to come out of this is that people now read pre-event communication.
Yes.
That's something we can celebrate. Danny, what were you going to say?
Yeah, the uncertainty and the fear is a very strong emotion. And until you have an opportunity to kind of through time show that, you know, we as a society can put a plan together. We as a venue, we as a state can put together a plan to keep you safe, to still engage in live entertainment, and to become those social creatures that we once were. You know, for us, we out of the gate, several folks were, why are you having a fair? Why are you having a fair? And then we slowly won folks over, and we saw our attendance climb day by day by day. And a lot of it was because of the positive engagement, the positive communication, the transparency that we tried to have, and the constant and consistent communications with the general public. And by the 10th day, we saw a neat turnaround, and it gave us a lot of hope. It gave other fairs that were asking us questions and coming out and visiting us some perspective, a human perspective of how folks engage. And I noticed a difference on how I feel about the COVID-19 than I did back when we were planning the fair. So as communication, as technology, as science changes, you know, we have to be prepared to evolve and change and adjust. And Renee, I wrote it down. Know before you go. I may have to borrow that slogan.
You may do that, Danny.
Okay, thank you.
You have my permission.
Thank you.
Amazing. Well, I just want to thank you all for what you're doing. Oh, yes, Chris.
Two things. One is, for some reason on my screen, the IEBA backdrop is backwards. So I just want you to know I don't know if that's user error on my part or what, but for some reason, even though it looks good on my other screen. So just want to make that point. I do recognize.
There you go.
Two, I want everybody to observe one thing as we move to the future, something that I noticed over the weekend for the first time. As we're watching college sports have fans and different places have fans, I want you to notice that every single game or every single event starts with people social distancing. But if you notice, what I'm noticing is by the end of the game, they're not. They're in pods. They gather up and they're getting in groups. Why is that? Because human beings have to socialize. And that's why I have no fear we're coming back from this. It may take us some time, but I have no worries at all that that's what's coming. And you're actually seeing it in audiences right now that are socially distanced. So pretty powerful stuff. So just want to close with that. Mallory, thanks for having me. I'm done.
Absolutely. With that, we dropped the computer mic. That's beautiful. I want to thank you all for gathering here today.
Yes.
Thank you to our guests. Welcome. Thank you guys here for the hope, for teaching us to recalibrate. And may we all light our candles and move toward a 2021 where we can bring people together safely, support our missions, and get our communities back together. Thank you all so much. Have a great day.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.